Hello, my name is David Speirs and I am South Australia's Minister for Environment and Water. It is a great pleasure to be able to be part of the World Urban Parks virtual conference hosted in Tirana, Albania by Mayor Erion Veliaj, and I hope I've said that correctly. I didn't have anyone to give me pronunciation tips, but to all those hosting us in Albania, thank you for your virtual hospitality, and I hope we can catch up face to face at some point in the future. Like many places in the world, Australia has had some significant difficulties with COVID-19 during 2020. South Australia is at the moment in the grip of an unexpected outbreak of COVID-19, and we are going through some pretty tricky challenges as we get on top of that. We've had a very safe time since April this year, and so we're in a little bit of shock as we transition to new restrictions and we seek to get on top of this particularly contagious strain of COVID-19. So please, I'd appreciate your thoughts as our government tries to deal with these particular difficult decisions at the moment. But what I'm here to talk to you today is about some of the work that is being advanced by the Government of South Australia, led by me as the State's Minister for Environment and Water. I think I have one of the best jobs in the world, and of course there are many people in the room or online today saying, no, I've got the best job in the world, because when you work in nature, when you work in the great outdoors, when you create and curate opportunities for people to get into nature, you do think you've got the greatest job in the world, because you do. You have so many amazing opportunities to immerse yourselves in nature, to see amazing wide open spaces, and to enjoy sharing those experiences with other people and making those experiences more accessible, more affordable, and more amazing. So we do have very, very interesting jobs. My job sees me responsible for all the parks in the state of South Australia, and we actually have a very significant proportion of our jurisdiction which is held within our parks estate. If you add all our parks together, they come to form an area the size of the United Kingdom. That's 21% of our state. And those parks include 356 national parks, conservation parks, game reserves, wilderness areas, regional reserves. We have got lots and lots of places for people to explore. Of course, today I'm here specifically to talk about the parks within our capital city. South Australia is quite unique in that the difference between the largest city and the second largest city is absolutely huge in terms of population. Our capital city, the city of Adelaide, first proclaimed in 1836, has a population of around 1.3 million people. The next largest city, the city of Mount Gambier in the far southeast of our state, down near the Victorian border, has a population of only 25,000. So from 1.3 million in Adelaide to 25,000 in Mount Gambier. That is a huge gap, and it really does obviously mean that the vast majority of people living in South Australia live in our capital city. Let me give you a bit of a virtual tour of our capital city. Adelaide is about 100 kilometres long, and it is hemmed between a range of hills known as the Mount Lofty Ranges and the coast, Gulf St Vincent, meaning that we are a long, skinny city, and we stretch from the northern plains, which are a fair bit warmer than the city and the southern suburbs, and you come down through the capital city, the CBD itself, and then out into the southern suburbs. To both the north and the south, we have significant wine regions, the Barossa and Clare Valleys to the immediate north of the city, and the McLaren Vale wine district to the immediate south of the city. Both these areas are a fairly short drive from the urban confines once you leave the metropolitan boundary. We have got an immense outdoor lifestyle here. People love getting into the outdoors. We love getting into our parks. We particularly love getting along our coastline. Our state has 5,067 kilometres of coastline and a significant number of offshore islands. The biggest, which many of you may have heard of, is Kangaroo Island. But we have many other precious offshore islands which in themselves present lots of conservation opportunities. But our metropolitan coastline, which is roughly 100 kilometres long, is particularly fragile. It's obviously an important part of the recreational part of life here in Adelaide, but also is an important part of our conservation efforts and is under significant strain from increasing storm events, rising sea levels, erosion, and obviously the pressure of population, people wanting to live and have recreational activities alongside the coast. We are very famous in Adelaide for our parklands. Colonel William Light designed the city of Adelaide when he arrived here in the late 1830s, and he mapped out a grid-based central business district surrounded by parklands. Our parklands are heritage listed and they are internationally famous in terms of city design. I'm sometimes a little bit critical of our formal parklands because I think they have in the past lacked creativity and imagination when they're brought to life, and I think they sometimes hold us back a little bit because we think, oh, we've got really good parklands, we've got the parklands, but actually we need to continue to invest in the parklands and many of our other urban parks as well. So I'm quite willing, as the Minister for the Environment responsible for many of the parks in our city, to actually provide that critique. Don't get seduced by the fact that you've got parklands. You actually need good parklands, vibrant, healthy, filled with biodiversity and opportunities for people to have recreational experiences and to have quiet time and time for contemplation as well. No more so important than during this difficult period of coronavirus. When I became Minister for Environment and Water following the change of government in March 2018, I brought a very significant suite of policies which I felt had an election mandate following a change of government after 16 years of Labour being in power. My suite of policies included a substantial investment in our national park system, the recreating and the reinvigoration of the National Parks and Wildlife Service, a substantial increase in the number of park rangers working at the grassroots, working with volunteers, with communities, with visitors and tourists to bring them into parks and to enhance their experiences. And make sure that they're working alongside our Friends of Parks groups. That's the overarching body which supports volunteer groups to get into our parks, to provide visitor resources, to undertake weeding and revegetation, and the volunteer management of our parks, working hand in hand with our National Parks and Wildlife Service. I'm pleased to say that I have expanded the National Parks and Wildlife Service by around a third since coming to office. That means more rangers at the front line, ensuring that these precious parks are maintained, looked after, and the value of them is enhanced. Part of that is actually enhancing it in people's minds, telling South Australians these parks really matter. They matter to your well-being. They matter to conservation. They matter in the face of a changing climate because they become refuges for our precious wildlife. So a big part of my work is actually to be able to say, our parks matter. You need to care for them. I will care for them. Together we'll fight for them. We'll fight for their protection, we'll fight for their expansion, and we'll fight for investment within them. The flagship parks initiative of the current government is the creation of a new park in the southern suburbs. We call it Glenthorne National Park, the name of the old farm that formed the heart of what is now becoming a national park. And I know a few of the people tuning in have actually been on a tour of Glenthorne with me in its very early days. Glenthorne Farm, as it used to be known, was an area which was really left behind when urban sprawl swept into Adelaide's southern suburbs. But it was protected because it was held firstly as a defence training site around the First World War and heading through the 20s and the 30s. And then following World War II, it was a CSIRO research station. The CSIRO is an agricultural and scientific research body here in Australia. Because of the quirks of history, we got suburbia growing on the west and the east of this park, but we had 208 hectares of open space preserved for many, many decades because of this unique purpose that it had. To the immediate east of the site, we have a significant reservoir providing drinking water for metropolitan Adelaide and surrounded by its own parklands, which to date have been locked away behind a fence. To the immediate north of the park, we had what used to be called O'Halloran Hill Recreation Park, a mountain biking and walking precinct. And then we have a river extending away to the south of the park with a significant corridor of open space, heavily degraded and largely inaccessible by the public. And to the immediate west of the park, we've got a couple of small parks and the coastline. You add all this area together, you can see that we've got a huge precinct of open space with that former Glenthorne Farm at the heart. Our government went to the election saying, we will save that farm from almost inevitable development for housing. We will save it, we will turn it into a new urban park, and we will wind it into the management of the reservoir and the other surrounding parks. We will be very intentional in weaving this new park into the suburbs around it to give people an immediate appreciation and access to the new park and to engage the community in the development, the curation and the master planning and implementation of the new park. We created the Glenthorne Partnership, a group of people who were not only interested in the environment, but are also connected to and involved in business, the local council, schools, and other significant things that happen in that community. That Glenthorne Partnership consults with the broader community. It has tentacles everywhere in the most positive way. And it brings other people along in the journey. So by having the Glenthorne Partnership, we have a form of community governance, which will, I hope, sustain the enthusiasm and the momentum behind this park far longer than I am the minister. And that's really important to me because I cast the vision for this new park, but I won't have this job forever. And I need the community to run with it when I have moved on or the voters have moved me on to somewhere else. Glenthorne National Park, please Google it. Check out the master plan. See how we are creating a new urban national park woven into our capital city's southern suburbs. And we're engaging hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on that journey. When the international borders open and you have the opportunity to come and visit us here in beautiful Adelaide, beautiful South Australia, please reach out to me. I'll take you to visit many of our sites, but I'll take you to Glenthorne because the potential there to replicate that sort of vision and get the community governance right is really, really impressive. We're doing it from scratch and we've got a lot to teach other people who want to do the same because we've learned from our mistakes and we've learned from what we've seen to have worked well as well. Another thing I want to talk to you about today is the creation of a governance body for the whole of metropolitan Adelaide. This is an organisation that I call Green Adelaide, and it was another commitment that I took to the state election. It's a policy which I have a lot of enthusiasm for and I think can really set Adelaide apart as a city which has expertise and runs on the board real outcomes, tangible outcomes, life-changing outcomes when it comes to urban greening. When you go up to Mount Lofty, which is the highest point in the Mount Lofty ranges immediately above the city of Adelaide, and you look down on our city, you do see a city which is filled with trees. We've got lots of trees in our backyards, lots of trees in our parks, and lots of trees lining our streets. And you look over the city and you see the CBD lifting up out in the centre, and then the taller buildings obviously break up the trees a little bit, and the main road thoroughfares and those bigger industrial areas like Adelaide Airport. But there are trees everywhere. But I have concerns. As our city becomes denser, and it is becoming denser because we don't want urban sprawl, we actually do want more denser development in the city boundaries. But as our city becomes more dense, we are losing tree canopy. I think we lost a couple of % of tree canopy in the last few years, and that worries me. That's a loss of habitat, which is a great problem, but it is also resulting in our city becoming warmer. Now, we know in the face of a changing climate, and Adelaide is a warm city at the best of times, we know that we need more street trees, more trees in our front yards and our back gardens, more trees in our parks to cool our city. And as we lose those trees, and as old trees die or are cut down, they're not being replaced as quick as they could be. So I've established Green Adelaide, a governance body with an independent board to challenge the state government, to challenge me as the minister responsible for this policy area to do better, to boldly and vibrantly green the city of Adelaide. Green Adelaide's board is chaired by Professor Chris Daniels, and it has people from environment, from development, from education, people from former government careers sitting around that board table and sharing ideas and challenging the state government how to green our city better. It's early days for Green Adelaide. Again, get online, Google what Green Adelaide is and some of the priorities. It's not just about urban greening in terms of getting trees in the ground and keeping trees in the ground. It is also about looking after our urban rivers, wetlands and water resources. It's about making sure that 100 kilometres of coastline and our sand dunes and our beautiful marine environment in the near coast area is preserved and kept in a great condition for us. It's also about bringing people along in that journey through nature education programs in our schools, in our community centres, connecting with local government. Adelaide, I think, has 16 councils. I should know that off the top of my head. I think it's 16 councils across the metropolitan area. That's quite a lot. We've got lots of small councils in our city and a couple of larger ones, but we need to work very closely with our councils because they are responsible for a lot of our park management outside the national parks and conservation parks that the Environment Department manages. So we need our councils working well with us, and I need to be able to resource our councils with not just financial resources, but also best practice science and evidence bases so that they can develop policies for the retention and the planting of street trees and the maintenance of local community parks. Green Adelaide is also responsible for flora and fauna in the city. We want native flora and fauna in our city. I'm recording this presentation today standing in my ministerial office on level 10 of a building on Weymouth Street in our CBD. You can't see it, but immediately out to my north there is a view of the city centre. And from time to time, I can see a peregrine falcon making its way between the buildings and creating havoc for the pigeons. My dad calls those the rats of the sky. Just a couple of days ago, the peregrine falcon swept around by my desk with a pigeon in its talons. To me, that's what Green Adelaide is about as well. Creating a city which is actually an evolutionary hotspot for nature, where nature can survive and thrive, where that peregrine falcon can nest on one of the tops of our CBD buildings and can hunt for those pigeons and can do so in a way that has the minister looking at and saying, "You go, peregrine falcon," when the pigeon's being taken off to the nest. That's nature in action, the circle of life, so to speak, but isn't it great that we can interact with that? And I want a city that's thriving with nature, where people do see that bird life everywhere and feel excited when they see a possum making its way across the telegraph poles in our suburban streets. Or we've got a program where we are protecting, with the help of volunteers, rare hooded plovers, which are nesting on the beach at Seacliff. Seacliff's one of our seaside suburbs, and I'm very fortunate to be the local member of Parliament for Seacliff. We've got hundreds of people engaged in keeping an eye and having a bit of citizen science around the survival of these really rare birds, which go out of their way to get trodden on and to nest in the absolute worst possible place, but we protect them on our beaches and we engage people in that journey as well. Nature in our city is important, because if you fall in love with nature in our capital city, which is where, of course, most people live, people will want to protect nature elsewhere. They will want to protect the wide open wilderness areas on the west end of Kangaroo Island, or out in the Nullarbor Plain, right near the Western Australian border, in Callacoopa Creek, way out near the Simpson Desert. We are a city and a state of immense open space. But because most of our population lives in the capital city, the journey for the vast majority of people has to start here. Start in your backyard. Start in the nature strip between pavement and road out the front of your house. Start in that council-owned and operated reserve round the corner in your suburb. I am so passionate about urban parks. They've got a real role to play in maintaining and enhancing the day-to-day lifestyle enjoyed by people living in a particular locality. Just last week, Adelaide was named the most livable city on earth. We're really proud of that. We wish again that you could come and see it now, but hopefully in the coming months and years, those opportunities will arise. We are one of the most livable cities in the world, but as our climate changes, as our population grows, that livability can be undermined, it can be eroded. As South Australia's Minister for Environment and Water, one of my jobs is to stop that erosion, is to make sure the momentum is there, that our parks are valued, that they're invested in, that they're cooling our city, and that they're creating habitat. I've shared a couple of case studies with you today. One being the creation of Glenthorne National Park. Please get online and check that out. And the other being this governance model, Green Adelaide, which I think, when it's up and running and firing on all cylinders, will be best practice governance for how to green a capital city, or any city for that matter. Thank you for listening to me. Thanks for getting used to my accent. I actually grew up in southern Scotland. I moved to South Australia 6,561 days ago. I know that because I recently just got to my halfway point living in South Australia. Lived just a few days more than half my life here. This is my adopted home, but I've been able to become a cabinet minister. Have been able to initiate and drive incredible change for our state. I feel incredibly privileged, but I couldn't do it without the Department for Environment and Water, the public servants who work alongside me, the rangers who are out there in our parks, developing them and looking after them, and of course our significant volunteer base, particularly our Friends of Parks, who stretch our capacity that bit further. I hope you can learn lots from what we're doing in Adelaide and South Australia. I'm only ever an email away. There's plenty of information online as to what we are doing. And I hope to be able to catch up face to face at one of the World Urban Parks Congresses somewhere in the world, perhaps, hopefully, not virtually in the coming years. Take care. Stay safe at this unusual and tricky time in our world's history. And I look forward to sharing more ideas, resources, and hopefully a little bit of inspiration next time we catch up.